Hello and welcome back to Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts. We're gonna take another look at resistance in now patch 1.6.0.6 live optimized X5. That's the current patch. So this is a ship I had already made. I think I made this to test gun barrel lengths and stuff from a previous video, but it's the one we're going to use today. So, German Super Battleship 2, base hull resistance of 105. Actually, what we're going to do, we're just going to clear it all and rebuild it. Base hull resistance of 105. And with no components installed, we can see it's got a base it's got a resistance of 144, not 105, because that number is with the let's not use semi-oil because it gives extra resistance at minimum displacement. But even so, the resistance here is already up at 121. And that is with nothing installed. No triple bottom, no anti-torp, no citadel, nothing. So that's a little bit weird, I think. I was actually expecting it to be 105 with the minimum displacement. Ideally, it should be 105 with the displacement slider set to the middle, but here we can see it's already 136. And maxed out, it's 152. That used to be what you ended up with before the displacement slider even impacted resistance at all. That used to be what you ended up with if you maxed it out with the triple bottom and the citadel and all that stuff. So yeah, even though it has supposedly been changed, been fixed, the whole resistance thing, it doesn't really seem that way. So we're just gonna build a some kind of ship here. Let's go with diesel for some extra engine efficiency. It's still not 100%, but that's where we are at. And we're gonna do some different testing here. Also, beam and draft, no impact on resistance. Beam and draft has their own gun damage modifiers. Let's see, where is it at? Yeah, plus 20 if you minimize the beam, and plus 17 if you minimize the draft. So we're gonna do that as the first test. We're once again going up against the Italian super battleships with all the 20-inch guns that we went up against last time. As for main guns, I think I'm just gonna put some on here. It's not really that important. I don't intend to be firing back. And I'm just gonna quickly build a ship the way I typically do. Let's actually just max it out for resistance for this this first test here, with the Citadel 4 and the anti-torp and all that stuff. Also, I would like to not explode, because that's not what we're testing. Let's get the radar too. Okay, so we got Citadel armor, we got actual armor. Okay, the turrets cannot have a lot of armor, but that's okay. I do intend to be taking some penetrating hits. So, let's see how this goes. Let's just drop that down to the complete minimum. It's a little bit slow, but there we go. So apparently now from resistance, which maxes out at 208 currently, Could probably get it, yeah, 212 if I go with semi-oil. So let's just do that for the sake of the test. 212, that's minus 100% gun damage. Do you actually need 212? No, I think at it used to be 192, now it seems to be 193 where you max it out at minus 100% gun damage. So you can get that with Citadel 5 as well on some hulls. So in those cases I would pick Citadel 5 over 4 because you get that third inner layer and you get better modifiers to ammo detonation chance and engine damage and stuff like that. But we're just gonna max out resistance completely, and we're gonna see if the what kind of impact the plus 20 gun damage from minimized beam and plus 18 gun damage from minimized draft has after we've already taken minus 100% gun damage from the resistance. Let's see how that works. Okay, let's quickly turn my guns off and just go broadside. Oh, they're turning that way. Anyway, so here are Brosili's battleship designs from a previous episode of Shipyard Champions. I just went with those as my opponents, so I can have the same ships shooting at me in all of these battles. And as you can see, I'm taking very little damage. Most of the damage I take is again fire damage, not so much from the actual penetrating hits. That is even with minimized beam and draft, which should make my ship very vulnerable. So I'm pretty sure the way it works is that... Hang on, I think I just want to turn down the sound here, because there we go. Those guns are noisy. I think the game first applies the minus 100% gun damage, which is apparently a rounding error. That's what Nick said on the forum. And it doesn't actually give you minus 100%, which makes sense because I am taking some damage. And then the little damage that is left after that very heavy modifier, that gets added the plus 20 and the plus 18% on top of it. But you've already reduced it so much, there's just not that much damage to multiply by those plus modifiers. So let's see if our ship is gonna survive the 10-minute challenge. If we're calculating from when they first started firing, that would be like 9:49. I think that should not be a problem, because we've taken a lot of fire and not a lot of damage. And when this is done, we're gonna do it the opposite way. We're gonna go light on resistance and then try to max out the beam and draft. See if that makes any difference. Well, it's gonna make a difference because it's gonna be different, right? Yeah, we're just sitting here dead in the water, soaking up 20-inch heavy fire. That's 10 battleships, each with 12 20-inch guns, so that's 120 20-inch guns. And they are Mark 5s. Let's see here. Over 300 normal penetrations, not overpens. Almost 400 overpens. 130 partial pens. Some blocked, some ricochets, but those now 325 penetrations. That should be a lot of damage, right? Because these guns supposedly do, let's see, there's the AP damage. 4,600 AP damage. HE damage is almost 10,000. But they're firing AP, so. Yeah, we're past 15 minutes. The Brandenburg is still afloat. Would still be combat capable. Some of their ships have made their way around and is firing straight into a flat broadside. Not that it's making much of a difference. Yeah, we've blocked some, we've ricocheted some, but that's still over 400 penetrating hits now. Not to mention almost 800 overpens and lots of partial pens. So we're at 20 minutes. Damage is really starting to stack up, but of the 19,000 damage we've taken, almost 18,000 has been from fires. The actual just damage from the hits themselves, only 642. And it surrendered, actually, after more than 20 minutes. So yeah, resistance still kind of broken. Now let's change it up a bit. Let's go minimum displacement, and this will still be a very high resistance ship. There's just no way around that with this hull. It's because it's got such high base resistance. Got a bit of a 4-weight offset. It doesn't really matter that much. But let's try and balance it out anyway. Now, let's chunk it up with the maximum beam and draft. Resistance is now down to 173, but that's still very, very high. Let's remove that stuff here. 124. That is not bad, but it's still, yeah, flash fire channels still good. 124 resistance is, oh, there are some hulls in the game that could only dream of reaching that, and they only start approaching it if you really pack on the higher resistance components. So let's see how this works. What kind of like how much of a difference the beam and draft, which should now give me minus 20% gun damage and minus 15% gun damage, and and that is after we've applied minus 52% gun damage from the resistance, which I just cannot get any lower than that. Yes, I can. So still minus 50%. Let's launch. Now we should be taking a bit more damage now. Let's drop our speed. I don't think it's gonna make it to 20 minutes. There we go. Yeah. Instant big hit for 3,000 damage. That's more straight, yeah. So that's the difference between 120 something resistance and whatever I ended up on last time. That was 212, I think. And that was I don't think I can make a better demonstration than that of what resistance does and how incredibly powerful this one single stat is. And that's with, you know, minus 50% gun damage. That's not nothing. And when you add on the beam and draft in addition, then like that's still something, but it's not minus 100%. So that was kind of a like two very extreme meme-ish builds. But you wouldn't really build a ship like this or like the other one in a campaign, would you? So let's build more of a somewhat realistic ship that you would see in a campaign. So this is the German modern battleship 2. Only 95 base resistance on paper, but that's with the maxed out displacement. That's still 137. If we minimize it, that's still 110, just base. I think a ship like this in a campaign, I would build it to, well, I would previously, before this impacted resistance. Now I would just max out the displacement because it's kind of a no-brainer. But before that, I would have it not completely maxed out because it would just take up a lot of shipbuilding capacity. Let's go with diesels. There we go. Engine efficiency is at 100%. What kind of guns would I use for this ship? Oh, I would go 16s actually, instead of 15s. This is it's been a while now since I played that German campaign, but I had a class of battleships like this and they served me very well in that campaign. So I'm just gonna kind of replicate that. I'm not gonna bother with the secondaries because it's just not important for this purpose. Modern 2 armor. I only went anti-torp 3 because I typically find that it's enough. That's 170 resistance. Would I go higher than that? It could potentially 174. And if I had maxed it out, that's 188. Let's keep it at 70,000. Just for the purpose of the test. Let's just make it not explode. Flashfire chance is 0. Pack on some rangefinders and some radar. Let's fiddle with the armor. So that's the maxed out top armor. That's a very just baseline, very chonky armored ship. I think we're gonna keep it kind of chonky. So this is more than what you would like historically see on a ship like this, especially with the extended belts and so forth. But there we go. Let's keep 8 on the second inner belt. And like so, I guess. Let's reduce the deck armor because it's just very, very heavy. yeah, more or less like this. So not completely maxed out in terms of resistance, but still pretty chunky. 174. That would be more than what you could possibly get a few patches ago. So let's just see how this is gonna fare. I don't think it's gonna make it to 20 minutes like the completely maxed out one did. So let's go. Alright, guns turned off. Let's slow to a halt. And at around the 9:59 mark is when they're gonna start firing. Yeah, there we go. Let's see how long it takes before we start taking major damage here. Yeah. So there we go. That is basically the difference between having high enough resistance to get that minus 100% modifier and not having that that resistance. So conclusion, I think in most cases, because this has been adjusted since I made the previous video, right? In most cases, resistance is working as intended, but you have some outliers, like these two, with base resistance of over 100. At 95, it's still kind of working as intended. Let's add the maxed out beam and draft for some more damage reduction. Resistance now up to 188. That's minus 97 gun damage, minus 97%. So we're going to be taking 3% the damage that we would originally be taking, and then modifying those 3% by a further minus 20 and minus 15% from beam and draft. So let's see how that works. Alright, same as last time, let's slow to a halt. Guns disabled. Let's turn broadside. Give the enemy a better target. And we're taking some damage. Oh yeah. That's still plenty of damage taken. So we are not invulnerable. But still fairly chunky, I would say. Remember, that's still 120 20-inch guns firing away at us. But this is with the resistance absolutely maxed out to what this ship can take. Actually, I might be able to squeeze in a couple more percent if I go with semi-oil instead of oil-free. Made it to 5 minutes at least. Let's pause it here, just take a look at, yeah, the pure damage from the guns is at 25,000. That's more than the fire damage, so that makes sense. 160 penetrations. Alright. 271 over pens, 50 partial pens. So yeah, so far the game does not seem to have just been completely broken. There we go. Sank by heavy flooding. Let's go with the semi-oil instead of the oil 3. That brings us up to 192 resistance, minus 99% gun damage. Now, according to the forum, what Nick said on the forum is that when it tells you, the game tells you minus 100% gun damage, that's a rounding error. Or just the UI kind of breaking down. And it should only be like minus 99%. And the evidence for that should be that, well, the ship still takes some damage, right? So let's see how it goes with the actual damage modifier set to minus 99%. And that 1% damage we are taking gets further modified by the beam and draft. That's just by going down to semi-oil, which gives us that last little bit of plus 2% resistance, at the cost of a lot of other stuff like boiler, like smoke interference and engine efficiency going down the drain and so forth, but still. Let's go. Alright, Brandenburg. How long are you gonna survive now? Guns off. Is she gonna make it to 20 minutes? Probably not. Maybe 10. Ah, no. We're actually not taking that much damage. Still some though. If you compare this to the first test when we had the minus 100% gun damage, we're taking significantly more damage than we were at that time. But that's still not a lot of damage considering what's being fired at us. That's 250 straight up penetrations with 20-inch guns. Not really doing much. But also, this is with a hull that has a supposed base resistance of 95. Completely maxed out with everything that can be put on it that adds resistance. Including semi-oil, which is... well, other than saving money, which is why I would use it in my my Chinese campaign, at least early on when I had no money, it's just a bad option. So I think that if this hull had a base resistance of 94 instead of 95, that would make a lot more sense. And unless they change how, well, change it further, how resistance and displacement works, I don't think any hull in the game should have more than 94 resistance. But I'm okay with some ships going that high, like some of the really big chunky super battleships and such. But 95 like this had, you know, you can kind of break it, like break the game by building it like this with the semi-oil and the Citadel 4 and so forth. Made it to almost 15 minutes. I think it's gonna sink soon though, probably by flooding. can survive to 9:44, that would be 15 minutes. Because you got to detract the first minute where the before the enemy actually opens fire. And I think we're gonna make that. Yeah. So still a little bit too survivable. So, to reiterate, someone commented on the previous video, yeah, you wouldn't build ship like that in the campaign. Well, if I knew I could make my ships basically invulnerable, then yeah, I think I would build my ships like that in the campaign. Because you'd be kind of a chump not to, right? If you can build your ships to just survive this kind of onslaught for an hour over 15 minutes, then of course you would. But what I'm trying to show here is that, well, you shouldn't be able to, because this is kind of silly. Can it actually make it to 20 minutes? It's taken a lot more direct damage than the first ship. Just showing you that, yeah, there is a huge difference between heavy flooding. Huge difference between minus 100% and minus 99%. But minus 99% is still crazy good. So, if I were in charge of this game, let's see, let's just zero out the beam and draft. If I were in charge, I would say that the stated resistance of plus 95 here, that would be with the displacement slider set in the middle. Which, let's see, let's take all of the resistance things off. That's 124. So what is that? Is a percentage increase. That's like 30% more, right? 30% more than the actual stated number. Hang on, I gotta do some math here. Yeah, that's roughly 30%. Give or take. So I've figured out that if this hull had a stated base resistance, instead of 95, it had 75. And you then get plus 30% by moving the slider to the middle here. That would give you a base of 97. And then you could increase that further to... So, with the slider set to the maximum here, 137 resistance, that is plus 45% of 95 resistance. So if the base here had been 75 at plus 45%, you would end up at 108%. And then that could be further modified by all of these components, and I think that would be nicer, actually. That would make a lot more sense, and you would have the maximum attainable resistance would be a little bit higher if you actually fully max it out, a little bit higher than what it used to be pre 1.6, I think it was. The displacement started impacting resistance. It would still be a little bit higher, but not crazy much higher, not as it is today. And Yeah, that would be a little bit better. And if you then were to minimize displacement, because apparently that was the stated objective of this change to the game. They were worried that players were minimizing displacement to build cheap ships, and they wanted to punish people for that. So, but like, you don't really, because even with minimized displacement, you end up with more resistance than what you used to have. So, strange things, but there we are. I think this system would work well if you just modify the base resistance values of the different hulls by so that, well, how is that going to work out percentage wise? I'm not going to math it out, but so that if you add 97, no, if you add 30% to the base resistance value of the hull, then you end up at the number you should have, which in this case should be around 95. So reducing that to 75 plus 30%, end up at 97. Close enough. Yeah, I think that would work. Just reducing everything by minus 20 resistance, that's not really going to work, because that's going to really screw over some of the hulls that have lower base resistance. Like if you reduce 81 by 20, you get 61, and that gives you a very vulnerable ship. But there we go. Some more testing showing you that, yeah, it's still kind of broken. A little bit less broken than what it was in my previous test, but still on the very high end of the resistance scale. That is the like hulls like this, which will max out at, let's not give it any, yeah, 152 resistance from what it was supposed to have, 105. Yeah, there needs to be some adjustments to certain hulls. Well, to most hulls, but some really need it, because this kind of breaks the game. Like you can so easily make this ship have the kind of resistance values that just make it close to impervious to enemy guns and torpedoes too, I guess, because yeah, you do get a lot of minus torpedo damage. So those were my poorly stitched together thoughts. I hope they made sense. Goodbye and take care.